Good evening, this is a foreigner in the Philippines. Well, we've been busy this evening, just before the light faded, opening a couple of Balikbayan boxes. And these Balikbayan boxes in particular are from Mr. and Mrs. O. Now, on the subject of Balikbayan boxes, it's a fascinating subject to me because it really is a different kind of open heart surgery, if you like. Because people see that there is a need on the other side of the world, and then on their side of the world they go out and they get this box, which is I think about 2 feet by 2 feet by 2 feet, a cube, and they fill it up. And now for some, they'll get one box and they'll fill up one box and they'll put in there all kinds of things that they believe that we might need. I guess the kind of thing that they think they would enjoy receiving. And then if they are Filipino or Filipina, they know the kind of things that are difficult to find. And so that's why I get hundreds of tea bags, because they're difficult to find here. I get a ton of band-aids, because I happened to mention once that band-aids were difficult to find, and I used to have a little thing on my knee, which I still have, and I would put on it a piece of black electrician's tape. So somebody thought, oh, for God's sake, we can help him on that. And now I have a lot of band-aids. So we're very thankful for that. But the other thing about boxes and sending boxes is that people, there'll be someone who, as they say, sends one box and they feel very good about that. And then, and this is very important, though people don't always understand why we have to make a video. Well, why do you have to make a video on it? Somebody said once, well, why do you have to make a video showing that you're paying Pastor Timio's wages debt? Well, people like to see that things are being done. And if somebody, especially if somebody sends a box, they sent a box, and like our friend Joy. Well, our friend Joy sent a wonderful box, or I think actually she sent 2 boxes, and she used to message us saying, what's happened to the boxes? You know, she was worried about the boxes. Why? Because she just got such a kick out of watching the faces on the family as they watched the box being opened, and watched pieces of clothing which she had bought and labelled, for this one for Terence, this one for Beth, this one for Nanai, this is for Lena, and for the kids. And she just loved that. It made her happy to have made others happy. Now, then you've got the others who will I don't know, do more than that, and they will buy and say that this little package that's in here, I want you to take it to, and then they'll name somebody that they've seen on our video, like Mr. and Mrs. O. In our last batch of boxes, they've just sent 3 boxes. They wanted, they saw that I mentioned the skeleton house a little while ago, and the skeleton house, they have, I think it's 7 children. I'm trying to remember, because the lady did tell us that she had 9 children, but 2 had died. But they had 7 just gorgeous kids, you know, just beautiful children. I think, I don't know, I think a couple, maybe 3 boys and the rest were girls. Just all lovely kids. And also appreciative and smiling when we took round the gifts that we were supposed to take round. Now, we've now got another package that we have to take round that's labelled for the children at the skeleton house. Yes, ma'am, we're going to take that round as soon as I have transport, and we'll take that to them, and they will be so happy. Now, as I say, there are different kinds of people who send Balikbayan boxes. The one thing they have in common is that they're all incredibly kind, they're all incredibly generous, they're all incredibly thoughtful. And then you have senders who are such as Mr. and Mrs. Bean. Now, the Bean family, they like to be code-named Mr. and Mrs. Bean because they want to remain anonymous. Mrs. Bean is suffering from a degenerative affliction with her eyes, and she can't see that well. But she had, I guess, she can see enough to know that that there was one little boy, Ontong, who seemed to have been left out, and she used to, this is what people are like, she used to lose sleep over the fact that this little boy needed to have something more. And her solution to this was to ask us, can you get him a bike? So we went and we said, well, we'll get Balantoy to go around, and he is friends with Ontong, and we will get him to tell Ontong, because Ontong was not living where we had thought he was. So we said to Mrs. Bean, well, we'll get that's what we'll do. And of course, who can know what's in the heart of such a generous person? Well, we'd better get Balantoy a bike too, because we're not going to go around and buy one bike and have, if they're friends. Okay, so we bought 2 bikes. I think of the Beans and the O's, Mr. and Mrs. O, and the family of Mr. and Mrs. Bean. I think of them putting their boxes together like it's a military campaign. I remember those, I don't know whether you ever saw these old movies of the British, terribly. It was the RAF, oh boy, and when the Battle of Britain was on, they used to have in a cellar out of the way, in a concrete shelter, they would have this big table, and it would have little flags on it with numbers which were coded for different aircraft, and then they'd have pretty RAF girls, and they'd push these. They'd have a big long pusher, a little bit like this, look, right, a little bit, and then they'd push these little flags around as the battle was raging, and that's how they would see what everything was going on. And I think of the Beans and the O's as having such a table in their cellar or in their garage, and pushing these little flags around with toys for the children, games, books, t-shirts, and this is for the skeleton house, and that one's for Ontong, and I think of it like it's a board game. It's like this incredible dedication to, let's get this thing right. And then we opened a box just now from Mr. and Mrs. O, and I don't know, did you ever watch that movie, Mary Poppins? Well, Mary Poppins was this magical person who came, she really came to sort people out. Anybody else, you might think it was a religious thing, but she came on a magical mission where she sorted troubled households out, and she taught everybody how to love each other. And one of the magical things about her was that she had a carpet bag. that's one of those old-fashioned bags. It looks like it was made out of patterned carpet, and it really wasn't that big. But when she put it down and started unpacking, she got everything out of there. I mean, the only thing I didn't see coming out of there was a kitchen sink, but she would put her hand in the bag and then she'd pull out a 6-foot standard lamp and all kinds of things like that. It was a magical thing. Obviously the inside space of her carpet bag was 50 times bigger than the outside space. It was one of those physics things, you know, where it's a Walt Disney physics. And when I was unpacking with Beth, I was unpacking Mr. and Mrs. O's box. That's what it was like, because we took the bags out and Mr. O apparently had taken it on himself to go out, because I mentioned once, I said, you know, I think it would be a great idea looking at the faces on those kids when they're unpacking and they see dolls. These are little girls who live in dirt floor NEPA houses. If you're saying I've got nothing, you can forget that definition. You're saying that you've got nothing is nothing, sorry, no pun intended, is nothing like the nothing that these people have. It's a dirt floor. They sleep on the floor. They sleep on a mat. At best they sleep on a mat that's on a bamboo strip floor. Now they're not doing that quite not as many are doing that now, because I think that we've actually given 14 or 15 mattresses away, courtesy of Sandman Steve. See, so things all start coming together, but Sandman Steve is another story. Mr. and Mrs. O talked about, when they saw the video where I said, wouldn't it be great to just have a box that's just full of dolls, and we could go out and there's so many little girls at the church that we go to, and we pick them up and bring them into church, and then they play around, and they have little things that they do with Beth. She runs what everybody else in the West would call Sunday school, a very loose description for Sunday school, but she takes them through various biblical stories and role playing and singing. And then they come into it, when they've learned how to sing something, they'll come into the church in a particular moment of the service, and you'll get, I don't know, a dozen or 15 or 20 little kids singing. Wonderful. It's wonderful. Well, Mr. O decided, Colonel O decided that he was going to take over that part of the campaign where we would get the dolls. And sure enough, we got, I don't know, it looked like more than 100 dolls to me, but how did they get 100 dolls into that thing? Well, with masterly military precision, they shrink wrapped it into one of those bags, and you stuff them into the bag, and then I guess you put a vacuum cleaner on it, and it sucks all the air out, and something that should have never been able to get into that bag is suddenly in the bag because it's all shrink wrapped. And then again, with all the worry that goes with being Mr. and Mrs. O, they said, can you make sure that you unpack the dolls, because maybe by being shrink wrapped or vacuum wrapped like that, they may not be so fluffy anymore. This is the kind of worry that besets someone who gets so much joy out of seeing children smile. They worried about whether the dolls would be fluffy. Well, Mr. and Mrs. O, Mr. O, Colonel, the dolls are fluffy. I don't know how we will ever get them into 3 or 4 boxes, whereas you got them into 1. But we'll do it. And Sunday will be a great day because we're planning on getting all of the boxes stuffed with the toys and the loads and loads of stuff that you sent. My God, how did you get it into those boxes? And Manong Rado will take those boxes down, and he'll take them not to the church, but he'll take them on a carabao in those boxes, because they're only light now. We take them down to the road, and then they'll go from there by tricycle, and they will be given out on Sunday, and that will be such a great day. So that's our little talk on boxes, and I've already been talking for 15 minutes. God, I can't stop it. Thanks for looking in. This is A Foreigner in the Philippines. Bye for now.